Alright, so today I am making up some scales for these little tiny neck knives out of some spalted maple. This is some 350-year-old maple that came down on a local plantation out here that I happen to get a couple of scrap pieces from, and it's gorgeous. It's got a lot of figure in it. Hopefully I can get that figure to come out some with a little bit of oil finish, and yeah, and these will be gorgeous little pieces. But meantime, I want to bring you along on the journey of me putting scales on these things. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to pick one of these knives, this one probably, and we'll probably take these longer ones for these knives. And what we're going to do is we're going to figure out, we're going to lay this down like that, and I'm going to take my permanent marker here and just kind of real quick throw a sketch down and around, down and around the outside of this booger, just like so. Then I'm going to move my hand. Yep, it says here in fine print I am. And a little bit big is just peachy, because we're going to sand and grind on this thing a little bit. So that's one side, and we're going to go to the other side. We're going to come in, swoop, and swoop, swoop, swoop. There we go. And that'll give us a cutout for that one. Okay. And we're going to do this on all three. Swoop, swoop, swoop. Swoop. Anybody watch the Nick Jr. where the dude, I think it was actually Bill Cosby, drew with the magic pen? No? Okay, showing my age. Let's see. Last one here. Now, this maple has been stabilized, which is a process that keeps the spalting from breaking up. It goes in, and it's like a resin or a glue that you put this on under a vacuum so that it draws through the grain of the wood, and then you heat it a little bit to activate the resin. Most of them have a heating element to it. Cactus Juice is a popular brand, but you know, it could be any of them out there. It doesn't have to be the name brand stuff. But you put your stuff down into a container inside of a vacuum pot, draw a vacuum, usually a couple hours, and leave it under vacuum overnight. And the next morning you pull it out, and make sure it's not still bubbling before you do this, but you pull it out, wrap it up in aluminum foil, and put it into a heat oven. Different ones have different heat times and temps that they have to hit. But this one I think was an hour at 400 degrees, and it what it does is it sets up in there and solidifies and hardens the adhesives in there. And basically, the wood product becomes very similar to a hard plastic at that point. There's the two sides cut out. And there's a little bit of course there is. Little difference in it from where I flipped it over and all that, but we'll adjust that post-haste. And we are on to the second one now. I do have the bandsaw on its fastest setting for this. When I cut metal with this, normally I have it set pretty slow. Yeah. You're so small. Number 2 down. Here we are with number 3. Ta-da! Okay, so here we are again, my friends. Now what we're going to do, I'm going to grab my little pen again, figure out which pocket of the two put it in. Put it in the chest pocket. That's where I put it in, the non-existent one. And we are going to, just for mock-up's sake, come in here. We're going to come. You can't see what I'm doing. Let's see. Okay. You still can't, but that'll be okay. We'll come like so. Hopefully I don't drop you. Alright. So maybe that's it. Okay. So we're going to come in here and we're just going to do like that. And I'm going to push the butt ends together so that I can feel them. And we're going to come in like this. We're going to mark right there. We're going to mark right there. Yeah. So that's got to come back this way some, because that's all the wood I got to work with on the other one. And we are going to do like that. It's going to be good, I guarantee. There we go. So there's one. And we're going to grab this one. We're going to grab the smaller of the two, since we just proved that Joshy Poo's an idiot. Okay, there we go. And we're going to come in like, maybe like that. Yeah, that's what we'll do. We'll come in just like so. And then we're going to mark it on the other one. Okay. Just there's that one. And our last one. Get just so. Okay. This one. We want to come in like a this. Just like a this. Then transfer our mark like so. Come down right there. And then right char. Move that stuff out the way. And zip, 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 zip. Just like that. Then we're going to trim that off and be back. All right. So I got one recorded. I forgot to get the other two done up, but anyways, so we're on to the next step, which is applying the epoxy. These guys are little tiny neck knives, not going to have a whole lot of force applied to them and torque. So they're not going to actually get a pin to mechanically bind the pieces on. I'm just going to epoxy them and it'll work great. So things that I do for the epoxy. First off, I lay down wax paper or parchment paper to protect my surface that I'm going to be setting these things to rest on. Then I get a pair of gloves out. I get my little cups for mixing up the epoxy. I'm not coloring these, so I only really need one stick, my 5-minute epoxy, couple of clamps, and then the things I'm going to set. So let's get started. first thing is I put my gloves on, because otherwise I make a mess out of myself. Think I can finger paint with epoxy. Alright, so what I do is I apply our resin into the cup first, and I just kind of eyeball this stuff. Doesn't need to be a whole lot, about the size of a quarter dollop in there, and it's probably too much anyhow. And then again, another quarter dollop in there. I have used these bottles before, so life gets a little interesting with trying to get it to come out of the bottle some. There we go. Now, we just grab our tongue depressor, mixing stick, whatever you want to call it, mix it up. Let's see, grab our scale, figure out which side's got the bevel on it for the front, and apply it to the back of the scale. And we want to bond that right there. Just kind of smoosh it, because I put a little bit extra on just to cover that. Flip her over. Make sure it goes all the way around and has a little overhang, and we're okay all the way around. Then we're going to take and slather our stuff on the other scale. Just like so. Put it on. Give it a smush. Okay. Then we are going to take our clamp and clamp right there, and give it a little bit of a TLC line up here, and we'll set it aside. And we'll carry that process out with each consecutive knife. So, you know, yeah. Like I say, I get messy, so I keep boxes of these gloves all over the place. It may seem a little bit wasteful to you, but once you get the epoxy on this rubber glove, nitrile glove, it starts to heat up and get hot on your hands and melt through the gloves. So, yeah, see? So we're not going to use but one knife, one pair of gloves, okay? So there's that. Next setup. We're going to do the same thing, put our pair of gloves on. Get the resin. Start with just a little bit, about the size of a quarter dollop in there. Now the resin itself, you could go ahead and put in all 3 cups and be done with it, and then add the hardener as you get ready to apply. The resin gives you a little bit more time to play with until you add the hardener. So you could add colors to this. They do make dyes. Alumalite is the brand name for the dyes that work with a lot of epoxies. I'm not going to say all because I don't know, but that's the one when I was researching coloring the epoxies that, you know, seem to work with the most brands of the epoxy. So, yay, okay. That's going to have some fun to it. No, because I'm an idiot. Make sure you got your stuff lined up and ready to rock before you mix your epoxy, guys. Because this stuff is 5 minute. 5 minute epoxy. So you got 5 minutes after mixing it to get it on the blade and set where you want it. Otherwise, you ain't got it. So, this one goes right. Har, Waka Sue. Get it mixed, put the other side on, spread it Like I said, I get it everywhere. That's why I put the gloves on. And we're going to put that on there. Get them lined up. Best we can. Snazzed up like so. Smush and clamp. Good job, Bubba. Try and get your clamp right smack in the center so it applies pressure evenly to the whole thing. Otherwise you wind up with wonky gaps and stuff when you go about this. Let's see. You're going to sit right there. And we're ready for the next one. Sit right there. New gloves. Like I said, that stuff starts to get warm on your fingertips quick. So especially I think because it's super humid today, this stuff is wanting to activate quickly for me. So push that glove back in the box over there. Alright, last one, and then we're going to wait a little bit. I like to give this stuff a good hour before I try fiddle farting with it, just to set up. I know it's 5 minutes, 5-minute setup epoxy time, but you know, I like to make sure it's set before I start applying torque and torsion and sanding on these things just to get the final fit on it. Again, quarter size drop, quarter size drop. And I apply that quarter size drop to the opposite sides of these cups so I can keep an accurate eyeball on it, or as accurate as eyeball can get. And then I mix. Thoroughly mix. And it should go from clear to a little opaque, milky almost. Yep. On then, we put it on our scale, like so. Stick our blade on there. That done. Then we get the other scale, cup, pull it out, apply, slap, and then smack that down. Try to get it even all the way around. And pressure. Clamp it. Clamp it. Adjust. Moved when we clamped. Okay. And we'll see you back in about an hour. I want it to leak down the blade, so we'll flip that over. So the blade's up. Clean up our mess. So, this is a new day. I actually let them sit overnight because stuff come up at the house that I needed to be available for. So now what we do is we come in. I prefer to use the angle grinder for this, and I'm not going to show you me doing it, but so I come in and I make everything leveled up and cleaned up, and then we go to finish work, which in the case of these is really just going to be buff it up and throw some boiled linseed oil on them. So I will catch up with you guys on the finished product later. Okay, so now these just need a little bit of hand sanding and a redip just to freshen up the etch. Let's see, pull this one out here, and just come in with a little razor knife and finish up the peel of the overflow from the epoxy. You can kind of, I hope, see some of the figure in that wood. It'll really pop once I once I get it hand sanded up to about 1,000 grit, and then put some tung oil on it. This one had a bad piece back there in the back, so we had to take down past the metal on both sides there. But it's real pretty maple. Yeah, but that's how I attach the scales and what I do for finish, and I will let you see them when next time you see these guys. They will have the tung oil finish on it, and after that I'll make little neck sheaths for these guys to go into, and then they'll be completely done and ready to go off to their new home.